Good morning, gentlemen, or maybe good night, depending on your time zone there. Um, Let me see. Let me finish taking a look at who's in the room. Well, all right. I do believe I recognize all the names except for one. I know there's one person here today who's new to the workshops. So welcome. Let's see here. And so I do have an emailed in question from Stephen that will get the workshop started today. All right, but beforehand, let me ask if anybody would like to hear the workshop introduction. All right, so the workshop introduction is I'll explain what we do in these workshops and what is not done in these workshops. All right, so basically I'll kind of explain what these workshops are all about here, so there's no confusion. Then I'll explain how the recordings work there. So if you do ask a question, you'll know how quickly you can get a copy of the recording and how to, request an early copy of the recording there. And then lastly, I'll explain what custom indicators I can install into my machine here in case you do have a question about using somebody's custom indicator. Basically a non-standard NinjaTrader indicator with Bloodhound or Blackbird there. All right. So if anybody would like to hear the workshop introduction, let me know, and I'll get that done first before getting to the questions here. So, and there we go. Let's get Chrome updated. So, all right. Well, I don't see any takers on the workshop introduction. So let's jump right into the first question here. So let's see. Here's the screenshot. All right. So a nice screenshot was sent in here. And I don't know why, but it's really enlarging this screenshot a lot. Let's see. Let me shrink it down. There we go. All right. So we can see we have another Renko system question here. And this sounds really familiar. I think I may have answered this question or this system, built this system here in the workshop before, but I suspect it was probably a very long time ago here, possibly maybe even Bloodhound version 1. So we'll do it again. All right, so so we can see here going over the system rules here. Essentially, we need the Renko bars to hit the fastest moving average here, which is what? Yeah, there you go. EMA 17 there. So, yep, so the bars need to touch the EMA 17 there, and then reverse back in the same direction there after that touch. Now, the signal here, and this is kind of the key to Stefan's question, is the setup is invalidated if price touches the, let's see, that's the 34. Mm, mm, mm. Oh, okay. So the gold is the EMA 34, even though it's pointing at the red line. Okay. Um, yeah. So as long as price does not touch the middle moving average there, the EMA 34, then the setup's good. But if it does touch like here, then the setup here is invalidated. That's really kind of the key to the question here. So, and we can also see that sometimes all we need is just a wick to touch the fastest moving average there, and that's good for a signal as well. So, all right. Um, yeah, so that's the question at hand. So give me a moment here to set up my chart, and then we'll start building this out in Bloodhound. All right, there you go. So now I have my chart all set up, similar to that screenshot there. So we have the EMA 17, 34, and the 50 there. There. Let me just, yeah, double check that. There we go. All right. So with that, let's get Bloodhound open and start building. All right. So first thing you want to do when you start building a new system here is you definitely want to set a file name for all your work to be saved to there. Right now it just says unnamed, so that means none of your work is getting saved. So let's hit the save button and put in today's workshop date. There we go. And all right, so now we have a file name here. There we go. Let's see here. All right, so the first thing we need to identify is something like this. Yeah, it's a perfect setup here, right? So has the bar touched the fastest moving average there, right? That's the setup there. So let's take care of that easy one first here. All right, so to do that, to identify if a moving average has been touched, we're going to use the comparison. Right? So if you think about it, the way you know moving average is touched is the low price of the bar is going to be below your moving average, and the high price of the bar will be above it. Right? Pretty simple analysis there. So all right, there we go. So we'll give it a name here. So input A, that's going to be the bar prices, the high and the low price. All right, so let's set this up. So this solver is going to generate a long output when the high price is above the moving average, and a short output when the bar is below, or sorry, when the low is below the moving average. And then input B, that will be the moving average that you want to identify if it's been touched. So let's go find the EMA. There we go. All right, 17 period. Call it good. There. All right. So we can see here that obviously, so the high price, right, of the bar is above our EMA 17. So we're getting all these long outputs. All right. If the high price is below, right, there's no long output here. And the way we know if the bar is touching is we get a long and a short at the same time, right? Because the high is above and the low is below all at the same time. So now we just need to filter out all the bars with a long and a short signal together and eliminate, right, remove the long only and the short only. So to do that, pretty simple here. Grab a function node and grab a function node. Where is it? There we go. That long short modifier is what we want there. And there's a couple of modes here that you can use that will effectively give you the same result here. But the one I'm going to use here is the minimum mode here, right? So that means that this long short modifier returns the minimum value from the long and the short side. So when you have long onlys, the minimum value would be the short output, which is 0. So therefore, the long output is reduced to 0. So when the long and the short have an output at the same time, right, they're both 1, the minimum value is 1, and so we're left with just the long and short output bars. So, all right, so there you go. That's all the bars that are touching our fastest moving average there. All right. So now, at this point here, probably need a slope solver here, to identify what direction, the signal is. So let's add a slope solver. Like so. There. All right, so let's just plug in the EMA there. And there we go. All right. So when we get to just these wicks touching here, yeah, the EMA is going to keep sloping there. Obviously, we can see here if we get a reversal bar, it pulls those EMAs, in the opposite direction pretty easily there. So we'll take this and couple these two together here. Right, and there we go. right? So essentially, this is just going to be the wick touch here, right? And let's see, looks like, we can see here that on these bar reversals, right, that's not really a wick touching here. So there's a couple of ways we could filter this out. And I do have a little bit of a cheat sheet here in that. A screenshot of Bloodhound was kind of shown here. So, so we can see that we're also comparing, where to go? There we go. Yeah, sorry, the top two. Yeah, we're making sure that the moving averages are stacked in the correct direction there, right? Pretty, very, very common here for these type of Renko systems here, right? So let's do that as well. So that's one way that we can eliminate, right, this short signal here and that short signal there. That's one way. We could also compare the open of the bar, and right, so we know that it's a wick that touches if the open is above or below that fast moving average, right? So it's kind of there's usually two at least two ways to kind of filter things out here. So, but for the other type of entry signal here, right, where there's actually a pullback, right, that's going to use the stacking of the moving averages there. And we can use that stacking also for this pullback. So there's no need to build an extra solver, looking at the open when we have a solver comparing this 17 to the 34, and it could be used for both type of signals there. And that way we can eliminate the number of solvers being used. So let's build that stacking there. All right. All right. So connect that in. And there we go. We'll just plug in our EMAs to input A and input B. All right, there's our EMA 17. And now let's get the 34 in there. All right, there we have it. So the blue and the gold line there. Yep, so we can see when the blue and the gold cross each other there. All right, and so let's see here. Let me just copy this one, and I'll paste a new one down there. All right, so input A is now the 34 period. So we'll just adjust that real quick. And input B is going to be the 50 period now. So once again, go in and adjust that like so. Right, and there we go. So here's the gold and the red crossing each other now. And so as far as the wick signal there, we can connect that in, right? And there we have it. So there's our filtering right there. Yeah, there we go. There's a wick touching right there. Now, yeah, we can see here, maybe you want, the stacking to exist as well when the wick touches. So we can just connect the other comparison solver in right there. And then that gets rid of that signal right there. So now it's mandatory for those EMAs to be stacked correctly there. And let's see, yeah, there we go. All right, there's a couple of signals. Yeah. All right, so now let's move on to the Renko's actually reversing there and generating that signal there. Um, so you know, depending on the Renko bar that you have, you know, yeah, it looks like basically with this, you know, wick touching system here that you're probably always going to get a signal from that wick touch, just simply because, yeah, all right, the typical hybrid Renko usually has a long wick there, included with the reversal bar. So we could just yeah, we could add what the filtering here of if price hits the EMA 34, you know, then kill the signal afterwards to this, you know. So I guess, you know, we could keep it simple like that. Yeah, okay, let's go with that route for now here. Yeah. So I guess the way you understand how does, you know, price crossing the middle moving average here, you know, how do we use that to kill a signal here? Well, basically it all comes down to the AND node here, right? So if we look, you know, at the output values, right? Look, we're getting long and shorts at the same time here, right? And if we look at the slope, right, these are all sloping down like so, which actually, yeah, it looks like the EMA 17 is reacting fast enough. All right, so that's not going to be a problem. So sometimes, you know, when you have a slope solver in here, you know, on the signal bar, right, sometimes those EMAs can't reverse back up in the correct direction, you know. So sometimes these slope solvers can actually eliminate some signals by accident there. So let's kind of keep that in mind. So, but the 17 does react very quickly on a Renko chart there. Yeah, so I think we're going to be okay there. But so my point, let's see, getting back to the point here, which with the AND node, when we get these long signals here on these wicks, it's because every node here, or every solver, has a long output on that bar. So if we introduce basically another solver that has no output, right, no long output, then that would kill that signal there. Right? So let's see here. Yeah. So we first need to identify if price does touch the EMA 34, right? So we have a solver over here for the EMA 17. So let's make a copy of this. And we'll paste it down here. All right, so this is going to be for the 34. So we'll go in and go in and adjust the period like so. We also need, this long short modifier here, and I didn't do this earlier, but I do like to rename these, based on whatever the mode is, so I know exactly what this long short modifier is doing. So now I'm going to copy that. And we'll paste that down here. Like so. All right, so there you go. There's our bars touching, right? Now, we actually want the opposite. Remember we said we need to remove the long output, right? So the way the AND node works, if we have no long output on this signal here, then that signal gets removed, right? So, so if we connect that in, and then what we can do is invert that like so. And if we invert that, there we go. So all of these bars here, where there's an output, the bar is not touching the EMA, right? But whenever a bar does touch the EMA 34, then there is no output, like so. So now if we connect this in, like so, there we have it. So that signal got removed, but then that one, right, which had the little wick touch, stayed in place there, right? So the key was, right, is you build a condition that identifies the condition that I'm trying not to use that word twice here. So you build a solver that identifies the condition that invalidates the situation, and then sometimes you might actually just invert the solver itself, but since we are using a long short modifier, right, I'm actually inverting the function node here, right? I'm inverting that node instead of inverting this node here. There. All right, so let's see if everything looks okay. There, so that wick right there, right, or I should say this bar with that really long wick was eliminated. Now, maybe that's actually acceptable because it wasn't a reversal bar, right? We didn't have a reversal bar there. So, right, and so here's another situation, does it really have to be a wick? Or, what if the bar doesn't have a wick, right? Something like that. Is that acceptable? Right? Lots and lots of details here, but that was not a part of the question there. But if you did want to eliminate that, then what you'd need to do is add another comparison solver that requires, or sorry, that checks that the open is above the EMA 17 or below it, right? So in order to invalidate that, the open price has to be above that moving average there, right? And that would be, that would look something like this bar touch, but instead of looking at the high and low price, you would put the open price in here and just make sure that the open price, is above the EMA 17 there, right? And if we look at the rules here, so imagine, right, input type long and short are both set to open. And if we open up the rules window, then what this would read is if the open, right, so for a long, if the open is greater than the EMA, then give us a long output, right? So the open greater than the EMA, right, that means the open is above that EMA, right? And same for the short, right? So the open would be less than or lower than the EMA. Right? So that's how that would work out. If if you wanted to disqualify these bars here for some reason, so all right. You could also require a minimum separation between the EMAs. Right? So we can see, right, that separation there is really tight, whereas that one's nice and spaced out. So you could so here, right, this solver right here, where we're comparing those two EMAs, we could go into the rules window here and say, we need at least, I don't know, what am I on here? The NQ, and let's just kind of get a rough guess here. All right, I think 3 points ought to do it. Put 3 points in there, hit apply, and bingo, there you go. Right, those two EMAs are less than 3 points away, right? That's more than 3 points away. So you could add a separation requirement there as well. So if you really kind of wanted to start dialing down on the filtering there. So, all right. Anyways, let's go back to an earlier observation. Where did it go? Okay, yeah, here it was, right? So maybe, the wick of the reversal bar, is to be ignored there, and instead only invalidate, right, that signal if the bar close, crosses, if the bar actually crosses, not just touches, but crosses that moving average there, right? Use that to eliminate the signal there. So let's see here. Yeah, so instead of this filter here, so I'm just kind of deciding on how I want to approach this. Wondering do I want to use a crossover solver to identify that, or a comparison solver? I don't really think one's easier than the other. So yeah, I'll just stick with the comparison solver. So I'm just going to identify when the close is, what side of the EMA 34 the close is on. So let's give this a name here first, right? There we go. All right, so input A is the closing price. Input B will be the EMA 34. There. Mm, yeah, so I'm not sure if this is going to work, so I'm just going to experiment here, which is exactly what Bloodhound's all about. Just testing out an idea and seeing how well it works. All right, yeah, so I'm thinking I can use this long and short output together to my advantage, right? Because that long and short output on the same bar lines up, right, with these reversal bars here, right? Which could be, the signal bars there. So, yeah, so let's copy this guy here and paste it. Oh, right, let's try this again. Copy and paste. There we go. Let's see, what do we get? Yeah, all right. Um, mm, there, well, I think everything's okay now. Um, think everything looks good. Really, and really, we're left with the same result, right? With a bar, left in this fashion here. So where the difference is going to lie is, here, let me slide this back out of the way here. And let's see here. Let me give this a name here as well. All right, something like that'll do for now. All right, let's close that out. So if we take, right, these backtest Rankos, and if we turn the backtest mode on, there. Boy, we had a lot of oddball price action right there. Look at that. Boy. Price is really chopping around there. Um, mm, yeah. All right. So I think this might be a situation here where the two ways of eliminating, price touching the EMA 34, where it might make a difference. Let's find out here. Yeah. All right. So that signal is gone. So actually, that one works better. Interesting. Um, hmm. Oh, there we go. Okay. Yeah. Um, hmm. Hmm. All right. Well, here we go. So this kind of highlights um, the differences here. So, right. So this wick penetrated through, all the EMAs, but still generated a signal if we're looking at, the closing price actually touching um, the EMA 34 there, the middle one there. So that signal got through, whereas this one, right, if we're looking at the bar, if the bar just simply touches the EMA, then that signal was eliminated there. Yeah. All right. So it looks like that's our difference there. There. Let's see if I could find another example. Yeah, right there. There we go. Yeah. So the close didn't actually cross the EMA 34. And so that signal appeared right there. Right? So remember, this system's looking at the closing price there. But if we just go to the bar touch, there you go. Those are all eliminated, which, in this choppy business might be obviously is a good thing here. But, just looking at this technically, there you go. So, all right. So I'm just gonna, leave it with that there. Yeah, call it good. So there's the two different filters there, filtering conditions. And yeah. There. All right, let me see if there's any follow-ups on this. Okay, so this is Stephen's question here, and so he says it's okay for the bars to touch or slightly go over the EMA, but price can't close above. Yeah, okay, so I guess what that means essentially is the wicks. Yeah, so if it's not the closing price, then it would have to be the wick. Can go over. Yeah, so yeah, so if uh, if the bar is actually reversing, if we're in a pullback, then obviously the close is going to cross it, or it's not. You're not going to get a wick as the Renko bars, right, are have reverse direction and are performing a pullback there. Yeah. So yeah, so it sounds like probably what you want is to use the filtering mechanism here that looks at the closing price of the bar there instead of the high or low, right? So remember the bar touch there, right? The bar touch is looking at the high and the low of the bar, whereas this method down here is actually looking at the closing price. So yeah, so let's move that down there, move that up like that. Yep. There. So, but I'm just going to leave it like this. So that way, for others, who are looking at this same type of system there can play around, with both filtering conditions there and decide what you want to go with there. So, all right. So with that, let me check these others. Um, yeah, let me see what Melroy and Randy have. Make sure they don't have a follow-up question on this. Let's see. Okay, no, Melroy's, has a follow-up question to a prior workshop. Um, and Randy's asking any problem with the new NinjaTrader. Yeah, NinjaTrader 8.1.7 series. Um, let's see, will this update bring changes or enhancements to Blend? I, Randy, I don't see how NinjaTrader can ever enhance or bring changes to uh, another vendor's indicator. Actually, doesn't even bring changes to NinjaTrader's built-in indicators. Um, just generally speaking there. But as far as I know, we haven't done any specific testing with the new release of NinjaTrader. Um, but as I mentioned, wow, yeah, um, Ninja's been uh, what holding off on releasing the 1.7 series for a while there. And yeah, looking through their release notes, I didn't notice anything. I think I know we are using it now, and so far nobody's found anything. So it doesn't look like Ninja snuck in any undocumented changes so far. But um, yeah, so Randy, as far as I know, yeah, that NinjaTrader is fine. So I haven't found it. We haven't come across anything yet. So doesn't mean, that there might be some weird little quirk with it that just hasn't been discovered yet. So yeah, and that's always stuff that's undocumented. So there's no way to ever give a positive answer on stuff like that. Because it's always, I said, keep saying again, it's always the undocumented stuff um, that seems is usually what causes problems with Bloodhound, Blackbird, and other vendor products as well. So, um, yeah, so far so good with our use of 8.1.7. So, let's see here. All right, so let's see. Moving on to Melroy's question. Yeah, so he wants to change his system up here. All right, so I guess first let me find your email there, Melroy. I don't recall seeing it. So give me a moment to look it up and see what there is. Okay, well, Melroy, I found your email, so let's pull up this screenshot here. All right, so the question here is, yeah, so as we can see in the screenshot here, um, yeah, we have this long output here, this long signaling here, and so if the MACD, is falling back by 1 point, and again, I just want to emphasize, guys, computers can't arbitrarily make a decision of 1 or 2 points. Humans do that, but computers do not. So you got to pick something here. So it's either 1 point or 2 points there. So we'll just go with 1 point here. Yeah. So if the MACD basically falls back, or pulls back by at least one value here, 1 point value, then eliminate the output there. So if we look here, yeah, it looks like, so on this short output here, right, it looks like the MACD is also falling back by 1 point there, right? So this short output would be cut, right, cut by the last 2 bars there. And so this long output, yeah, I mean, this is not a high res image, but it looks like, that MACD is not really pulling back by one point there. Yeah, but in any case, that's the request here. So another good example, right? Short output, but then if the MACD falls back, too far, whatever you want it to be, 1 point, 1.5 points, 2 points, yeah, then cut the output out. Yeah. So, um, all right. So I need uh, so Melroy, when was this system originally answered in the workshop? What was the date of that workshop? Let's see. Hmm. Okay. Okay, here we go. This is it. Um, yeah. Uh-oh. What happened there? Okay, get out of the way. There. Ah. Hmm. So what I built is nothing like what you sent in. So I have, yes. So I don't know how I'm gonna fix this because I don't know what you have here. Um, yeah, yeah. So what you have here is different than what was built previously. As you can see, right? This only gives, nice discrete signals here. Um, hmm. Yeah, that signal extender only extends for 1 bar. So that wouldn't change much, actually. Hmm. There we go. Yeah, so I mean this screenshot here doesn't apply to what was built in the workshop there. So you're gonna have to, provide me um yeah, you're gonna have to provide me with, what built this so I know how to um yeah, how to what stop the signals, yeah, once that MACD pulls back a certain distance there. Yeah. Let's see here. All right, Melroy's giving me some more information. let's see here. All right, 107. Let's go back here. Yeah, I'm not sure if you're referring to this. It does look like the MACD did step back a little bit there. Well, actually, and that is because, open this up here. So remember, I'm connected to the signal extender. So we can see every signal is at least 2 bars there. If we connect it up to the original, right, connect it up to the AND node, there. Yeah, so that looks good. Let's see, here we go. Yeah, there's a minor pullback there. Definitely not 1 point. Let's see. All right, yeah, so here's an excuse me. Another difference is, yeah, this is looking at the MACD histogram, not the MACD there. Yeah, so let's see here. So in all these signals, yeah, the MACD is going, yeah, there is no pullback on the MACD line. Well, not yet. Let's see if I can find one here. No, MACD is going down. Yeah, all right. So I'm not finding, yeah, this signal here that you're talking about at 1:07 p.m. Okay, well, anyways, yeah, there's more comments here. Um, Sorry about that, folks. Why is my do not disturb not working? I swear. All these phone updates messing everything up. Um, hmm, yeah, got me. All right, phone's on do not disturb, but yet it still rings. Let's see here. All right, sorry. So continue on here with Melroy's other questions here. Anyways, yeah. So before we just kind of skip past this, yeah. So you know, if you can provide me with how exactly these um, signals are being generated here, how they're being output there, like that, then once I can analyze the design, then I can figure out how we could um, prevent the signals when the MACD, um, and I guess this is the MACD histogram pulling back by a point, not the MACD. This says MACD, but I see you're pointing at the histogram again. So again, be clear, you got to name things correctly. So if it's not the MACD line, then make sure you say the MACD histogram, because the MACD line's up here, not there. Um, yeah, but in any case, yeah, once I kind of know how, what is the design here, so I know how these long signals are extending, and short signals are going for such a long period there, then I can figure out um, how to eliminate those signals there once the MACD or the histogram, reverses direction, by X number of points there. So details matter. There is no generic answer when you're working with computers. So yeah, again, like when you're working with computers don't understand one or two. You got to pick one and go with it. So yeah. All right, yeah. So if you want to, follow up with that information, then next time, yeah, we can figure out how to eliminate those continuation signals there for you. All right. So, all right. So here, let's move on to Melroy's next question here. Okay, yeah. So this next question here is about Blackbird, really. Yeah. So the question is, when you have a long series of signals, right, across multiple bars, the question is, does that mean Blackbird is supposed to take a trade? Yes. Blackbird is not supposed to interpret what you want. Blackbird doesn't interpret anything. Again, it's software, it's a computer. It can't read your mind. So if you give Blackbird a signal, then Blackbird's job is to take that trade. It's not going to know when or when not to take the trade. So let's look at this area here where we have a long, Then we have one bar with no signal. Then we have, what, about 4 bars with a signal, no signal, then another long signal. So yeah, Blackbird, if you tell Blackbird, take a long trade, don't take a long trade, take a long trade, that's what these signals are for, is to tell Blackbird when to trade. So it's not Blackbird's job to figure out, oh, I think so-and-so made a mistake here, my human made a mistake, and so I'm not supposed to take a trade here. Software can't do that, and that's not, and Blackbird will not do that either, right? Because if you started designing software to try and interpret what you mean, then at any point, the software could say, no, I'm not going to take these first signals. I think that was wrong. I'll take the buy signals afterwards, right? Once you start introducing a judgment call, everything kind of goes out the window, right? So yes, it is. Blackbird is trying to take a trade on every single signal. Now, Blackbird is also designed to not put the account into shoot, just lost the word. Into a margin call. Yeah. So, Blackbird, is designed to not put the account into a margin call, because with futures, I guess, this would go for stocks as well, right? If you did literally buy on every single bar here, right, you could easily have too many open contracts and get into a margin call here. So Blackbird does have a setting it's turned on by default, so that Blackbird will not open another position until the existing position is closed, right? So so for example here, so Blackbird sees this first bar with a buy signal, so it buys. But let's say you have a profit target way up here, and let's say you have your stop loss down here at this swing low, and then you have your profit target, I don't know, 1 ATR above this swing high. So let's just say you have a profit target up here, right? Yeah, somewhere around up here. It's going to say a profit target at the tip of this red line here, right? So Blackbird opens a buy, a long position. You got a target up here, stop loss down here. And so on the next bar, right, that long position is still open. So Blackbird is going to ignore that long signal because you still have a position open. But once we get to this bar, right, it looks like this bar would actually hit your profit target. So boom, this bar hits your profit target. Your long position is now flat. And so once this bar closes, there is a long signal sitting on this bar. So Blackbird says, okay, I've been given another long signal, and Blackbird is flat. So then Blackbird says, okay, it's okay. It's time to take that long signal, and it'll open another long position there, and it'll keep doing that, as long as there is a buy, as long as there's an entry signal and Blackbird is flat, it will keep opening a position there. So so let's go, and I can point you to the documentation here so you can read more specifically here. So trade signals, right? So in the Blackbird section there, it's going to be in the trade signals. So let's open it, another tab. So really, you need to read this entire section here so that you understand some of the safeguards built into Blackbird there, in regards to um, margin calls on the account. So right here, you can see there's a section about open positions. So this is what I'm specifically talking about. But my recommendation is if you always focus on the narrow, then you're not going to see the bigger picture. So definitely read the entire section so that you understand the bigger picture of entry signals versus exit signals. Yeah, so you really do need to read this entire section here so that you can understand and see the bigger picture there um, of how they interact with each other. Right. So again, that's on the trade signals page there. Yeah. So in Blackbird, there you go, right there, that guy. So, okay, so a little bit of reading tonight there, Melroy. Okay, so there's that question. And let's see what's up next. Yeah, all right. So it looks like, yeah, we're gonna, yeah, go back to the original question here. All right, so at 8:57, okay. Um, well, I have a signal at 8:40, 8:50. Um, well, all right. So I think we can take this signal here um, as something to work with here. So here at 7:50, we have the histogram. Um, yeah. So I'm going to go with the histogram. I mean, you've mentioned the MACD line, and now you're mentioning the MACD average. Yeah, it starts to go in the opposite direction. Um, so, um, yeah. So, since we have a short signal here and then the MACD average, well, even the MACD line starts to, yeah, turn around as well. Um, I'm going to use, yeah, just go with the MACD average or histogram, sorry, as pulling back here and using that as something to work with here. And I think we can probably maybe even extend it to this long signal as well, and that long signal um, as well for some more examples of um, blocking a signal when one of the MACD lines, kind of reverses direction in the opposite, starts reversing in the opposite direction of the signal itself. Okay, so let's yeah. All right, so I'm going to copy that out and there. Put it in today's workshop file. And yeah. So the way I'm going to get, these continuous signals here is I'm going to have to just use a signal extender here. And so, yeah, so really if so if this long string of signals here, if it's not based on a signal extender, then what I'm going to build won't apply. Yeah, that's which is why I said I need to know exactly how this system is built here, so I can apply the correct a correct what design, so I can apply the correct design to turn off those signals early there, right? So if you're using something like a signal extender, then it's pretty easy, right? We have this reset connection here. And this reset connection is exactly what the name of is supposed to imply, right? Is you're resetting the extending of the signals, right? So that's how you can turn off the signal extenders, by using the reset connection when what is turning off the signal extender, when it's some other condition, right? So yeah, so in this case it's going to be the MACD, right, reversing here. Oh, let's see. Let's see. Okay, yeah, so we're just using the standard MACD settings. Okay. So give me a moment to get this set up here. All right, so this is the area, yeah, I said that we could utilize for this, right? So the original signal is right there when the histogram kind of reaches its lowest point there. Yeah. So if I connect that in, right? So we're just taking these single signals here and just extending them forward like so. Here. Yeah. All right. So again, what we're designing here is if the histogram pulls back or essentially moves in the opposite direction of the signal. So in this case, right, the MACD moves up when our signal is down, right, short. Same thing over here. So we do have, yeah, well, we do have a step down here and then a larger step down here, right? So, yeah, we'll kind of have to figure out what kind of, how far the histogram has to step down there. So, and we can see over here, right, our histogram does make a pretty good step down right there. You know, so I'm thinking, you know, this bar will turn off the long, and on this bar we'll turn off the long, and of course we want to turn off the long here, but it could be this next bar here, you know. Depends on the values we want to use for what is that distance at which the histogram is pulling back, right? Or changing. What's the distance that histogram is changing? So first thing we need is to identify, right, when that histogram moves a minimum distance. Yeah. All right, so input A, that's going to be the histogram value of the current bar. All right, so let's plug in the MACD here. All right, again, I'm just using the typical standard periods there. And we want to look at the histogram there. Input B is also going to be the MACD. There we go. And again, select the histogram, right? But this time, we want input B to be 1 bar back, right? The value of the MACD histogram 1 bar back. So we're going to set our displacement to 1. Now, in the comparison rules, this is where we can specify how much of a movement we need or we're looking for. So, yeah, so if I put in, 1 point there, so we can see that actually, on the histogram here, right, it didn't move 1 point, but once we got up above the 0 line, then yeah, we can see those are some pretty large movements there. Yeah. So let's knock this down to maybe 0.5. 0.5. And see how that looks actually. let's mark these here. There we go. All right, so now let's see here. All right, so yeah, so right there, that the histogram from this bar to this bar moved, more than 0.5, 0.5 units there. And let's see. And there we go. So for this signal, yep, that step down, yeah, it was more than 0.5 units. And for this one, there we go. We got a step down here. Yeah, all right. So this 0.5 ought to work here. So if we connect this in to the reset there, and then what we have to do is, right, actually we can see here, look, well, so this one managed to get two bars here of a signal extender, but those were cut off immediately. And that's going to be because let's go to our signal extender here. That's because on the resets here, we need to make sure that we have the correct conditions selected here that we're looking for. So, so it's not going to be reset signal. It's going to be reset opposite signal. There. And let's see. Oh, no, not opposite. No. There we go. Select the wrong one. Reset opposite signal. Okay. And oh, there we go. I clicked on that one by accident again. There we go. There we go. All right. So there. So our longs extend until the MACD drops, right, by 0.5. Same thing here. MACD drops by 0.5. And right there, the MACD dropped by 0.5. There. Now, going back to our resets here, right? How do we know that we needed to use reset opposite signal as opposed to the default, right? The default is set to reset signal. So, right, so we turn the reset signal off and enabled reset opposite signal there, right? And so just look at, right, so here's our signals, right? These are the signals going into the signal extender, right? So I marked them, right? Long, long, short. Now, if we look at, this is our reset conditions here. So if we look at this, right? This is a short signal, but what is identifying when the histogram steps backwards by at least 0.5, right? We're getting a long. So this long output, it's the opposite of the incoming signal, right? The signal itself is short. So it's coming out of the AND node and going to the input is a short here, but the signal at the reset is these longs, right? These long signals is what we want to reset the signal extender, right? So these longs are opposite of the actual input signal, right? The input signal is this short, all right? Connect that up, right? So this is the input signal. So the signal extender, right? It's extending a short signal. So again, this is giving us a long output as the reset. So that is opposite of the signal. So when we go back to, so when we go to our signal extender, go into the resets, right? We're using an opposite signal at the reset to actually, all right, turn off the signal extender. So I guess, yeah, just to be clear, let's do this. Let's say I swap everything, right? So now we have a short output, right? So the short output is when we want to turn the signal extender off here, using a short output. Well, since the signal extender is extending a short signal, then these short resets are the same, right? The short resets are the same as the signal being extended. And so in that case, we would use the default here of, wrong one, there we go, right, reset signal. Yeah. So the reset signal matches the input signal in this case here, right? So, but yeah, the way this comparison solver was built, we are indeed using an opposite signal to reset the signal extender. Yeah. So, let's see here. There. All right, that's essentially what what this is. What this example is all about is when the MACD histogram, has a pullback of 0.5, and then we're using that to reset the signal extender. Yeah. So. There we go. I'm glad I caught that. Yeah. I almost left this in the swap mode There we go. I was wondering why we didn't get five, extensions of that short there. There we go. Okay. Yeah. Yeah. All right. Well, yeah, Melra, if you have any other questions, let me know. Or anybody else, if anybody else has their own questions, let me know. So, yeah, I am ready for the next round of questions. Hmm. And you know what? I'm just, I'm rereading Melroy's question here. So actually, there's another, like, totally separate question here. Hmm. Okay. Yeah, so this other kind of component slash question, I can't answer it either because I have to have the actual system here to work with um, to answer it. So again, there's no generic answers for stuff, guys, when you're building systems. Yeah. So since I don't know, how this system is built exactly, I can't actually answer it. But the other question is essentially about generating a reversal signal um, when, yeah, when the MACD average line starts to pull back or reverses direction of the signal here, which I don't actually see that happening here. Yeah, the MACD average line takes so long that it's not actually reversing direction on any of these. Um, yeah, so Melra, I don't see any examples in your screenshot of the MACD average line falling back here. I mean, yeah, when these signals come to an end, the average line is continuing to move in that direction. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Average line is continuing to move. Average line is continuing to move, continuing to move. Average line is continuing to move up. So actually, I would adventure to guess here that it looks like the slope of the average line is a part of the system because it seems like as soon as that average line is reversing direction, then the signal comes to an end. Yeah, it kind of looks like, yeah, even with these long outputs, that average line looks like it might be reversing right there. But the short comes to an end. Although right here, there's definitely some other element because the average line is continuing to slope up. and then it rolls over somewhere in here. Yeah, average lines continue to go down, and then it looks like it's beginning to slope up, and so the shorts come to an end right here. Average line is continuing to slope up. Yeah. So, all right. Yep. So I can't answer that because I'm not, yeah, I don't have this system here, but also I don't see any examples here on this screenshot. So, all right. Yeah. So for today, at least I can't answer that. Your can't answer your original question there. Well, let's see. What time is it? Wow. Okay. It is almost the 2 hour mark. So not too bad for a workshop. Um, so let's see here. Let me see who's in the room. Oh, we do have some new people here in the room. All right. Well, yeah. So gentlemen, I'll give everybody at least 10 minutes to see if there's any more questions I can answer. Otherwise, if I don't see any more questions in the next 10 minutes or so, then I will assume we're done for the day. Yeah, and wrap it up. So, yeah. I do have an email for tomorrow's Blackbird workshop. So, I do have something to get us started for tomorrow's Blackbird workshop. All right, gentlemen, I'm gonna call it here. Um, so yeah, looks like yeah, people are leaving the room. So yeah, as I kind of figured, we were done for the day. No more questions. Yeah. So with that, guys, yeah, we'll wrap it up. And if I don't see you in tomorrow's Blackbird workshop, if I don't see you tomorrow, then have a good weekend, and I'll see you next time. All right, bye bye, guys.